This is Football Night in America, served by Applebee's.
Welcome to the FNIA podcast, served by Applebee's. I'm Tony Dungy. I've got Rodney Harrison with me, and we're going to talk some ball today. Rodney, we've seen a lot in these first 3 weeks of the NFL season. Some great stuff, some good stuff, and then some stuff that's got us scratching our head a little bit. And I want to start there with you. Let's look at what's going on in Dallas. What do you think is happening there?
Well, to start it off offensively, they can't run the ball, Coach, so they become a one-dimensional team. And you see the frustration with CeeDee Lamb because now all of a sudden he draws more attention. He's getting double covered. He's getting a safety over top of him. And it's just a lot of frustration. And then you start to look, who's that number two guy? Who can be that kind of that relief for Dak Prescott? You look at Brandon Cooks. He struggled. I mean, he's been really an average player. A couple receptions of the last couple games. They have to do a better job trying to find that second or third weapon, Coach.
And defensively, they came out hot against Cleveland. We thought, man, this new Mike Zimmer style, they're on fire. They're going to be great. Then the last two games at home, they've fallen apart. Well, everybody's getting down on them. A little frustration. You mentioned Dak Prescott had something to say about that after Sunday's game, their second loss in a row. Let's hear what he had to say. All right. He's talking about that bandwagon. Dallas is America's team. A lot of people on the bandwagon, and he's right. Some people are jumping off. How about you? Where are you on this bandwagon, Rodney?
I'm jumping off the bandwagon, Coach, because at the end of the day, I look on the defensive side of the ball, and you know, just like me, we played on top defenses. You've coached top defenses, and if you can't have anything at the point of attack on the defensive line, those guys are getting pushed around. They're getting muscled around. And then you look at Micah Parsons, who's their generational talent, their best player. He's going around blocks. He's going under blocks. He's not going through blocks. It's like he's playing a finesse style of football. And I like to see him play a lot more aggressive. When that guard pulls around, you go and you have to go and wrong shoulder it, blow it up, and show some physicality. But I just look, and I don't think he's in great shape. He's the leader, and he's not hustling every single play. There's times where he can create and make explosive plays, but there's other times where they don't even block him. He just completely stops like he looks confused, Coach.
And part of the thing is you talked about their offense. When Dallas is really rolling, they get the lead, and then they turn their pass rushers loose and their speed on defense, and they give you a lot of problems. If you have to throw to hang with them and catch up, you're playing right into their hands. But when their offenses struggle, now the games are back and forth, and people are more patient, and they are running the ball at them. And they have to stop that run game, and that's not what they're built for.
Yeah, and you look at Mozzie Smith and Odighizuwa, those guys in the interior of that defense. Mozzie Smith is just getting pushed back 4 or 5 yards. Then you look up, he's quitting on the play. It's just they got some speed at the linebacker position, but of course, if you don't have those big defensive tackles keeping those offensive linemen off those linebackers, it's going to be very difficult. And in the secondary, they can't hold up because it's like they have all day back.
And part of the problem is now people have figured out how to play them. Last year, I think people went into Dallas thinking, man, I've got to score. We got to keep up with this offense. We got to throw. And now people are saying, you know what, slow the game down, pound it at them, see if they can hold up. And they're not doing it. I think we've got some numbers here to look at, kind of historically bad football on the defensive side of the ball. We thought Mike Zimmer was going to fix this, and it's been a little bit of a problem. 464 yards rushing in the last two games. That's you wouldn't be proud of that as a defender, would you?
I wouldn't. And what do you believe? What do you think about Dak calling out his teammates? Because I thought it was the right thing to do. The only thing I question, Coach, is when he calls, it's one thing to call out your teammates. It's another thing to call them unprofessional. Now, when you call somebody unprofessional, that's when you start thinking, okay, what is it? They don't have the desire to play. They're not doing the right things. They're not properly preparing. But a lot of times, if you say unprofessional, that's something a lot deeper.
That is a scary thing to say because what he's saying is we're not doing this the right way. And that's not only pointing the finger at the players, but the coaches, everything. And I'm okay with that, but I would like to see him start out and say, we heard Patrick Mahomes last week. Hey, our offense isn't clicking the way we should. I've got to play better. And then he went on and talked about some different things. So I would have liked Dak to say, yeah, we've been unprofessional. We've got to do better. But it starts with me. That's where I think a leader takes it.
Yeah, absolutely, Coach. And for me, I don't know if I were Dak, I would even given the media that. You know what I mean? It's to the point where you don't have to.
Yeah.
Right. Keep it in house. You don't have to blame people because now it becomes more of a distraction. Because as a leader on that team, you're looking out for the guys in that locker room. And as a quarterback, you definitely don't want to say anything that's going to become a distraction or force your teammates to have to respond to it. So if it was Dak, if I'm Dak, I'm saying, look, I have to play better. I'm the leader of this team. I got to get these guys going. You take all the blame. You don't have to point out your teammates, but I understand why he did, because there's a sense of urgency. They feel like they have a good team. They don't want to get too far behind, and he wants to, get everybody's attention.
Yeah. Well, they better have some urgency because they're on a short week playing a division opponent, New York Giants. Hey, we could look at this and say, hey, these were some games we kind of felt like they were going to take control of. But now you're on a 2-game losing streak. You've got the Giants, undefeated Steelers, Lions, who we know are going to be tough. You don't want to be 1-4, 1-5, 2-4 going into that bye week. You got to win some games and get some momentum. And it starts with this Giants game. I think originally we would have chalked this up as, this is going to be an easy win for them. What do you think about this one in New York?
That's a tough game. And then you talk about the Steelers with that unbelievable defense. You're looking at a hungry Lions team. You can't, overlook the Atlanta Falcons and the schedule. But the Washington Commanders, they're going to be competitive. They're going to fight and claw. All these teams that they have to face are teams that are building and teams that are excited about playing and right there in the mix, Coach.
Yeah, and this all of a sudden becomes a big game on Thursday night. You don't want a 3-game losing streak. You don't want to go down in the division. And New York is starting to play better. Malik Neighbors is a problem for anybody who's covering him. That defensive line getting after people. This is going to be a tough game for the Cowboys.
And Dallas, if you're Dallas offensively, you have to reestablish your identity or try to find out who your identity is. And it can't be just dropping back, letting Dak sling the ball. You got to be able to run the football up front and, and put the pressure on the defense. And then that's what sets up the bootlegs and the play actions and things like that. Things like that Dak excels at, Coach.
Now, do you think we can point a little finger at the management? Things haven't gone smoothly these first 3 games. And all training camp, we had this guy holding out, this guy talking about contract. Is Dak going to get paid? Is CD going to get paid? Where's Micah in this? Should management take a little blame in this slow start, do you think?
Absolutely. Jerry Jones should, because at the end of the day, you were going to pay CeeDee Lamb. Why did it take so long? It became such a distraction. Pay the guy early, have him in camp around his teammates so they can embrace him. He can work with the quarterback. You're always constantly working on timing. I played against Marvin Harrison and Peyton Manning for years, and they always would come out early and work on back shoulder fades, work on all those little things. And that was the best wide receiver quarterback combo in the league for years. But they continue to work at it. And those are the little things that makes champions. That's why they're Super Bowl champs, as opposed to, a pair that's trying to get over the hump.
Well, we heard what Dak had to say about things. Let's listen to Jerry Jones, see what he says about what's going on here with the Cowboys.
That's very fair. That's very fair. It's well known that no decision is ultimately made there for what I either haven't acquiesced or approved it. That's very fair. How could you think otherwise if we are basically, whether it be who's out there coaching, whether it be who's out there playing, whether it be the stadium you're walking into, whatever it is here, that's the way it is. Now, let me just say this. Do I have a huge amount of input in making those decisions? When they've done their homework, they are very influential input to me. And we've got a lot of people in the Dallas Cowboys that have done their input. And I think I've forgotten what it is. Now, I'm not trying to say this, but if you look at who's won the games over the last 4 or 5 years, Kansas City has, of course, but we're not far right. We're right in that pack. Now we're in a soft spot. We've got to get out of it.
Now, Coach, I would definitely
Wow.
say this. I would say this, Coach. They're definitely not close to Kansas City. They're not close
I
to
was thinking the
Kansas
same
City
thing.
in terms of head coaching, in terms of how the ownership runs the team, in terms of the leadership at quarterback position, in terms of the offensive line, guys that are around just on the defensive side of the ball. They have the best defensive coordinator in all of football. And anytime Kansas City needs to step up and stop the run, we've seen it against the Ravens, we've seen it against the Falcons, we've seen it, Chris Jones in the biggest moments. You can't compare Kansas City. You cannot compare Kansas City with the Dallas Cowboys, and that's crazy. And he's delusional. And I have a lot of respect for Jerry Jones. But at the end of the day, the best thing for the Cowboys is he needs to take a step back. Because when you play for the Cowboys, those guys walk in that locker room and they think they're superstars automatically. And just because you got a star on your chest doesn't mean you're a superstar. You have to go out on the field and earn it. And they've been getting their butts kicked up and down the field. And you talk about defense. I don't care if you bring in Tony Dungy, Buddy Ryan, Bill Belichick. If you're soft at the point of attack, which they are, they will not have a chance to be a great defense, period.
Well, that clip definitely got you going, and I'm with you. I agree with you. And the only thing I would say that Jerry Jones said there, the decision-making stops with me. Okay, so let's just look at the record and where you've been and a lot of the things that have happened. He's made the decisions. And I think they could have done a better job, like you said, get some of those contracts taken care of in the spring, let these guys concentrate, put all the distractions behind you, and let's go play ball.
Yeah, and if I'm Jerry Jones, for me, in the future, just thinking about the future, Coach, if we want to talk about, I'm not necessarily sure if I'm Jerry Jones. I'm giving Micah Parsons $35 to $40 million a year, especially when you're playing CeeDee Lamb. You're trying to rebuild your offensive line. You're trying to get your defense, get some young studs up front. I'm not sure if I'm paying one guy $40 million a year. So that's something that, the Cowboys may want to consider in the future.
Yeah, they're going to have to get this season turned around. And they still have plenty of time. They can turn this around, but they need a big year to get going in the right direction and make some of those decisions. I totally agree with you. Well, we've looked at where the trouble is. Let's look at maybe who's eating good in the neighborhood by Applebee's. And one team that's eating well is the Washington Commanders and their rookie quarterback, Jayden Daniels. As a matter of fact, he's been feasting. Last Monday night, he was on fire. Tell me your impressions of this young quarterback.
I thought I was watching a young Doug Williams. That's what I thought I was watching, a young Doug Williams. The kid was just so accurate, so poised, just extremely athletic. His teammates love him. He's got this serious side of him. I just don't want to see him taking any hits. But I think he's a fantastic quarterback. Kind of reminds you of C.J. Stroud with his decision-making, Coach.
He really has. He's come into it very, very calmly, poised. Didn't start out great in that first game. Second game, much better. Third game was electric. And he went into Cincinnati, dueling against Joe Burrow, guy who was before him at LSU. He said, yeah, I see all the Joe Burrow things on the wall here, and I understand who I'm competing against. And he went in there and just did his job and said, hey, you got to deal with us now.
Against a good defense, and a defense that we always talk about their defensive coordinator being Lou Anarumo, being a really good defensive coordinator against a rookie quarterback. He went in there and really set the world on fire. I was really extremely happy for him. I thought that, he was 1-2 right there with Caleb as far as the top quarterbacks coming out the draft. But I just love the poise and the maturity of this kid. And he enjoys playing football. And there's a seriousness side of him that, man, is just so competitive. You got to love it.
And I love Coach Dan Quinn, even though he's a rookie, in the big moments, he's putting the ball in his hands and saying, go win the game for us. Fourth quarter, Cincinnati's coming back, big third down play. They need something to happen. And there's a little bit of confusion there. And I'm watching TV, call timeout. He lines them up, faces the blitz, airs it out to Terry McLaurin, touchdown to put the game away. I thought, man, that was the play there that defined things.
Hey, thanks for reminding me about that play on the right side, right in the corner, fade. What a beautiful pass. I mean, you thought you looking at Dan Marino throw that pass. It was such a beautiful pass. But yeah, these young men, man, they have so much talent. And what I love about them, Coach, yeah, they'll move and scramble around, but really they want to be known and defined as, pocket passers.
Yes, and this young man, he has ability, he has speed, he can move, he can throw on the run, but he made some throws from the pocket under pressure, right on the money that were really, really impressive. And boy, you look at that highest completion percentage in a game with 2 touchdown passes. That's some good company he's in there.
And I just love the fact that the Washington Commanders, no longer do we have to worry about them being a negative light in the National Football League. This is the organization, new ownership, new coaching, new direction. Things are positive. They got a star young quarterback. I'm just really excited for the future of the Washington Commanders. Got a really good young general manager who's going to do some great things there. So Adam Peters, I'm just really excited about the Commanders, Coach.
They're definitely on the right track, and I don't think we can really count them out. We talk about Philly and Dallas in the NFC East and think it's going to come down there. Washington's going to make some noise before this year is over.
Absolutely, especially with that young guy leading.
Yeah. Well, another young quarterback who's eating pretty good in the neighborhood was Bo Nix on Sunday in my neighborhood in Tampa. He came down to Tampa against a very good defense on the road and put up some big numbers. I was high on Bo Nix before the draft. I was high on him in training camp based on the preseason he had, but he really lit it up for the first time on Sunday, Rod.
So, Coach, you got me really excited about Bo Nix because you talked about him so much in the offseason. You actually forced me to go and watch and study a lot more tape. And the kid is fantastic. And the kid is just a dog out there. And the one thing I mentioned to you is like he doesn't look like a rookie. When you see him play, the command of the offense, and he's with the perfect guy in Sean Payton, who's going to constantly push him, who's going to constantly remind him of footwork and his reads. And you can see him going through his reads. You can see the sneaky athleticism that he has and just all the things that he's doing, keeping his vision down the field. I like the kid a lot. And the Denver Broncos, they found their quarterback.
Yes, I met him at University of Oregon. He had transferred in, immediately got the players' attention. They loved him. He was a captain there, only being there 1 year. And he was just a fantastic young man. So I think he's doing the same thing in Denver. He went in there to Tampa. Todd Bowles threw a lot of stuff at him, 25 for 36. And he wasn't getting a lot of design runs, but when he had to run and scramble, he's athletic enough to do it. And boy, he just gave them a spark on Sunday against the Bucs.
Hey, Coach, why don't you talk about, too, because you mentioned this to me, as far as these young quarterbacks that have had a ton of experience in college, how has that benefited them compared to like a guy like Anthony Richardson who hasn't played much in college?
Yeah, I'll tell you, I go back to 1999 and talking to Andy Reid. There were a lot of quarterbacks in that 1999 draft. We ended up taking Sean King in the second round, and he played really well for us in Tampa. But Andy took Donovan McNabb. There were a lot of high-name, big-name guys in that draft, and he said, McNabb's my guy, and Donovan turned out to be great. And what Andy told me was, I really favor the quarterbacks who have played a lot of football, who come in experienced. Donovan was a 4-year starter. He didn't leave early. He had a lot of experience playing in college football and leading his team. And when you look at these two guys we've just talked about, Jayden Daniels and Bo Nix played 61 games in college. Jayden Daniels played 55. That's really more than 4 years of starting. So they're not coming in like normal rookies. Like you say, Anthony Richardson played a handful of games at University of Florida. These guys have played a lot of football. They've seen a lot of things, and they've been leaders for a number of years.
And I think that's something that we have to pay close attention to. Do you want a guy who's a good athlete, maybe not a great athlete that has a lot of experience that you feel like can come in and play right away? Or do you want a guy like Anthony Richardson who's a freak athlete, but has been kind of limited in his experience in college? And as we see, these guys that have had experience, their transition is a lot different than these guys that, really haven't had a lot of experience in college.
And the other thing about Bo Nix and Jayden Daniels, learning multiple systems in college. Jayden Daniels starts at Arizona State, learns that system, plays really, really well, transfers to LSU, has to learn another system, plays that system well, wins the Heisman Trophy. Bo Nix starts at Auburn and then goes to Oregon, leads them into national championship contention. So it's not just, hey, I did one or two things in college and had one good year. But no, I've played for a lot of coaches. I've learned a lot of football, and I think that does make a difference.
But coach, it's not just the physical qualities that they have. It's their leadership, it's the mental, it's the emotional things that they bring to the locker room. And when you're a quarterback, you have to deal with so many different personalities, so many different egos. And it's almost like you're a babysitter because you're always constantly adding people's egos and things like that. And I just think, these young guys to come in and to capture NFL locker room and have guys rally behind you, it says something special because guys are tough on young quarterbacks. So they, what I'm saying, especially when you've been drafted high, they want to know if you're going to come in and work hard. Are you a prima donna? So a lot of eyes are looking at you negatively, and you have to draw those eyes and make sure that, you bring that positive light. And these guys have done it. You look at his smile, you look at Jayden Daniels when he's out there balling. Man, come on, coach. What can the league ask for more, these young quarterbacks?
You're right. They've done it well. And it's a fine line because you have to come in and you can't be the diva. You can't be the star. You've got to win that locker room over. But you can't come in and say, oh, I'm just a rookie and I'll do whatever you guys say. You got to walk that fine line, and they've done it really well.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, we looked at what's wrong in Dallas. We looked at who's eating good. Let's look at some other teams where there might be some things just not percolating the way we thought they would. And let's start with our man, Jack Collinsworth's team, the Cincinnati Bengals. What's wrong with the Bengals, in your opinion?
Hey, Coach, I told you before, I said Cincinnati needs to be careful because with Jamar Chase not getting paid, he's not happy, he's disgruntled. He's still going out there playing. He's trying to be a pro, but at the same time, he doesn't have the same enthusiasm. And just now you have young guys talking trash, something that we hadn't seen the Bengals do. The Bengals were a very humble team. They were a very humble, hungry team. All they did was take care of their business. Now all of a sudden they're talking trash. So it's up to the head coach to get those guys back focused and really focused on the right things, which are the fundamentals of football.
And you are so right. I mean, offensively, maybe a little bit of a slow start. Chase wasn't in camp or wasn't practicing anyway. T. Higgins gets hurt. Burrow's coming off a little wrist injury. So how's he going to be? So there are going to be some questions on the offense. But you mentioned earlier, Lou Anarumo and that defense, we expect them to play lockdown, shutdown, and they're giving up about 27 points a game. That's un-Cincinnati-like, and they're not going to win ball games giving up that many points.
At all. And also, Coach, when you have a star like a Jamar Chase, if he's not on the field and he's not happy, how do you feel like you're going to go far in the playoffs? I want Jamar Chase, as an owner of that team or the representative of that team, I want him to know that, hey, you are our guy. You're going to be secure. Here's a $140 million contract. Here's $100 million guaranteed. We want you here in Cincinnati. Matter of fact, we want you to go tell everybody else how great it is and how we take care of players in Cincinnati. And that's been a thing that nobody wanted to come to Cincinnati for years as a free agent. And if they came, you had to overpay. Now you have an opportunity to set an example for Jamar Chase, who's one of the top 2 or 3 receivers in all of football, and you don't take care of the guy. I don't get where management is. You have a superstar, take care of him. You took care of Joe Burrow. You let Joe Mixon go. You're not paying T. Higgins. What are you doing out there? I got to start questioning who's running this team.
And chemistry means a lot. There's no question about it. That locker room needs to be tight. It needs to be together when you're going to face bumps in the road. Cincinnati's been 0-2 before. Hey, don't worry about it. We're going to be fine. Well, now you lose at home to Washington, go to 0-3. Now it becomes critical. They've got to get this thing turned around.
We'll see what happens.
All right, another young quarterback. We talked about these guys who are starting to light it up. One guy we expected to light it up was Trevor Lawrence. He came in with the same type of thought process, Heisman Trophy candidate, number 1 draft choice in the entire draft, a lot of weapons around him, and he's played some good football. But this year, he doesn't look like the Trevor Lawrence that we expect to see.
Yeah, and I don't even necessarily blame him. I got to look at the head coach. I got to look at Doug Peterson. I know we have a lot of respect for him and what he's accomplished in this league. And the players that he's impacted, but he hasn't done a great job with Trevor Lawrence. And this is a kid that looks confused. He looks hesitant. He doesn't look relaxed and comfortable. And this is after years of being with Doug Peterson. And, offensively, they're fumbling on the goal line. They're not finishing drives. It looks a mess, Coach. It just absolutely looks a mess. The defense hasn't improved. That's an area we thought, okay, the offense is going to continue to excel and improve. The defense should get a little better. The defense is taking a step back. Trevor Lawrence is not happy. You could tell he's not playing with a lot of confidence. You got to look at the head coach. And that's where I start, Doug Peterson.
Well, I always love those young quarterbacks to be in the same system. And so I had concern. They switched head coaches, bring Doug Peterson in. And so Trevor's got to change. But he went through that period, and he was getting a little bit better. Now, 3 years with Doug Peterson, you expect, man, he's going to really blossom in this system. But they have changed a lot of the personnel around him. A lot of the receivers are different. Let's try this guy. Let's bring a new character in here. And they've got to get some continuity and start building, I think. I agree with you.
Yeah, especially when you're paying a guy in excess of over $50 million a year. You're no longer on a rookie contract with this quarterback. So now, you're going to be kind of limited of some of the moves that you can make free agency-wise, because you're paying him so much money. But this is a kid. He does all the right things in the locker room. He's the right type of person. He's everything you want him to be. You just have to coach him up and build his confidence back. And that comes from Doug Peterson.
Well, another team with a high-paid quarterback that's not playing good football right now is the Cleveland Browns. What's going on there with their quarterback, Deshaun Watson, and that team?
So this is what I would say about Deshaun Watson. What I would want if I were in that locker room. I would want him just to leave and go take care of his business. All the legal stuff, all this off-the-field stuff, he needs to leave and just go take care of that. We as a team, we're going to be here practicing, doing everything we have to do to prepare for the football game. But to me, his lifestyle it's a distraction for the locker room. And he needs to go and he needs to take care of his business, and he needs to come back when all that business is taken care of, because he's not the quarterback that we envision him being. He's not the same guy. Only thing you're doing is hurting him. You're not helping this young man. You're not helping him transition into his life and become a better person when you keep putting him on the football field and he's got half his mind is distracted on things off the field and half his mind is focused on the things that are on the football field. He just needs to step away. And if you're trying to really help this young man in the future in his life, let him take a year off and get his life together. He doesn't need to be playing football right now.
Yeah, there's no question that's been a distraction. And there's another factor, I think, that has really hurt Cleveland as well. When they were rolling a couple of years ago, they had Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb, two big, powerful backs. They were running the football. They had a dominant offensive line, and that was keeping their defense fresh. And that defense was coming after people, and we thought they were the best defense in the NFL. Well, now they're not able to run it as well. It's all passing, and their offense hasn't really won the time of possession. Defense not as dominant now, and it's a snowball effect. I think they've got to get that offensive line and defensive line back, and they've got to get back to running the football.
Yeah, they lost their identity. So what do? You just have Deshaun Watson dropping back, running around, trying to create plays, and you're just not going to get. He's half in it, so you're not going to be a productive offense doing that. Just letting him run around, and the offense looks bad. I mean, when you're watching tape, Kevin Stefanski, how can you even be happy about what you're seeing? It's just no rhyme or reason for a lot of the things they're doing. You got Amari Cooper, and you're still struggling. It's unbelievable to me, Coach.
Yeah, injuries on the offensive line. Their big back, Nick Chubb, if he can get back into form, that could help him. But I agree with you. Their identity is not there, not what it used to be, and they've got to get that back. Another team I wonder about their identity is the Philadelphia Eagles. They're a play away from winning the Super Bowl 2 years ago, and they don't look like the same team. Even though they're winning, they're making some plays. But what's going on in Philadelphia, do you think?
To me, I look and they're playing hard, and they got significantly better playing against the run from the Atlanta game to this past weekend. But I look at their head coach, and I just look at Nick Sirianni like, what are you doing? Like, your bootleg, play action pass to Saquon Barkley. You're trying to run a sweep when all you have to do is line up and kick a field goal. It's like the head coach is, to a certain degree, seems like it's holding the team back. This team could be a lot better, but the play caller has to be better, Coach.
Well, you talk about play calling. Yeah, they've got a new play caller on offense in Kellen Moore. They're trying to figure out his system. I was there in training camp, and some of the players told me they love the system, but it's new. A.J. Brown said, hey, I'm going out there. I'm thinking about, well, this used to be called that last year, and it's something else this year. So there's a little bit there. Kellen Moore is a guy who likes to throw the football. You've got to run it with this group and Jalen Hurts to take advantage of what Saquon Barkley and what this offensive line does well. Then they got a new defensive system, and they're still learning how to set the edge, how to play gap control the way Vic Fangio wants it done. I think they're going to get better as the season goes on, but it looks like a work in progress right now. And then I, too, scratch my head at some of the decisions. When you can take points early in the game and you don't take them, you go for it on 4th and 3, 4th and 4. You wonder sometimes just about the thought process.
Yeah, I tell you, they're going to be a lot better, too, as Jalen Carter continues to dominate. I mean, what a performance last week. I was just amazed, the intensity and just everything that he played with. If they continue to get those type of performances on those young guys on that defense, they'll be pretty good.
And that's why you have to think that it's going to be coming. You look at the roster, and they've got a great running back. They've got 2 great receivers. They still have a dominant offensive line. They've got some big men up front on defense that can go after it. They've got some young defensive backs that we like. So the talent is there. They've got to put this thing together.
Well, I'll tell you this, Coach, and this is just the truth of it all. The Philadelphia Eagles have an unbelievable roster, a really cool roster. And if Nick Sirianni can't take them there, it's going to be a few veteran coaches lined up that feel like they can take the Philadelphia Eagles with that veteran quarterback, that offensive line, and those young studs on the defensive side of the ball with that secondary. Man, Philly has to be in Super Bowl contention with this roster. You have to be with these young guys. Develop these young guys. You work with Nakobe Dean. You teach them how to be an inside linebacker. You continue to work with those young corners. And, hey, Philly should be right there in contention, especially with San Francisco hurting and going through a bunch of changes. The Philadelphia Eagles, this is a prime opportunity for them, Coach.
Yeah. Well, speaking of San Francisco, let's talk about them. They were a play away from winning the Super Bowl last year. Kansas City is 3-0. San Francisco is 1-2. What's going on out in the Bay Area?
Wow, it's injuries. And Kyle Shanahan talked about it. He said last year, we were fortunate enough where our star players didn't miss a ton of games. They missed a few, but this year it's like, you're missing your star players. And Brock Purdy hasn't played, great. You're missing Kittle and Jawan Jennings. He played extremely well. It's just been kind of hit and miss. Obviously, they're missing Christian McCaffrey. He brings something that the young kid Mason doesn't really bring, a dynamic out of the backfield. Brandon Ayuk hasn't really had a huge impact like that. But the 49ers will be right there in the mix. They still have a good defense. They still got really good coaching with Kyle Shanahan. They'll be back on track soon.
I agree with you. You look at the injuries, and they have just been snake bit here early in the year. We saw them last week. George Kittle was out. Deebo Samuel was out. McCaffrey, you mentioned, was out. And then Trent Williams gets hurt in the game, comes back, but not the same guy. So you take 4 great players out of the lineup. That's tough on anybody. But do you think maybe the whole thing? Yes.
Javon Hargrave,
yes.
Yep.
Yeah. Do you think maybe a little, we talked about the negotiations in Dallas, the Brandon Ayuk situation, did that take anything out of that locker room early in the season?
I thought it took something out of him. I thought it took something out of the coaching staff, because when you're negotiating and you really like this kid, he wants to be here. It's mentally and emotionally draining because you see this kid, you know he's a big part of what you're trying to do. You're trying to go out here and practice, but the one kid that you have taking his spot, he's not Brandon Ayuk. So it's frustrating, and it's like, why do we play this game? Is it just to get as much money as we possibly can, or is it because you want to be here, you want to be part of something special? I understand the business aspect of it, but when you miss that significant amount of training camp, you're standing on the side, you're not able to really communicate and engage with your teammates and your coaches. It takes something away. You're not going to be in the same shape. I don't care how many times you're running sprints and gassers. It's different than playing football with your teammates, being able to communicate, being able to work on time. And coach, you know this better than I do because you've been a head coach for such a long time.
And it does. It impacts the whole atmosphere. I can remember my rookie year with the Steelers. They were coming off a couple Super Bowls, trying to win that third one. And my rookie year, we had about 6 guys holding out. Jack Lambert and Mel Blount were holding out on the defensive side, a couple of our offensive linemen. And it was just back and forth. And I didn't know any better. I just thought that's the way pro football was. Well, we had a tough year. We went 9-5 and we made the playoffs, but it wasn't Steeler football. The next year, all of that was settled. And I remember calling my mother like 2 weeks after training camp, said, "Mom, get your Super Bowl tickets. We're together." And you could just feel the difference. We went 14-2 with the same guys and won Super Bowl 13. That training camp is important, and having everybody on the same page is really, really important.
And that's why we talked about Jerry Jones earlier, and that's why he made this a bigger deal than what it should have been. And maybe he enjoyed all the TV coverage and all that stuff, but what he doesn't understand, it affects your locker room. It's a negative mark on your locker room, once again, with not having one of your key players. And knowing that you're going to get the deal, but messing around with it to the last minute, it's just silly. And it just shows me this is another reason why Jerry Jones needs to take a step back from this organization.
Well, you're not going to win if you don't have everybody together, everybody on the same page. And he talked about Dallas and Kansas City. Kansas City is a different type of atmosphere with the whole group, Coach Reed, the Hunt family, everybody's on that same page. And that's one of the reasons why they're good.
And the players, the players don't care about being superstars. They don't care. It's not about, Coach, we get them 3 or 4 times a year. And we meet with the coaches, we meet with the players, and it's the same thing. It's always about the team. Nobody cares about individual stats. Even Travis Kelce came out after 1 catch. Well, I just got to be better. He's not moping. Hey, we won. I only had 1 catch. Big deal. But the locker room is different.
Yeah, we had Carson Steele on the postgame show, and he just talked about that everybody's embraced me. I'm an undrafted free agent, and I'm just one of the guys, and we're rolling along, and these guys believe in me. And you can feel that. You can feel it. Well, we talked about football, who's good, who's bad, training camp. We will find out as we come into week 4.
You've been a great host, Coach.
See you in Baltimore.
Jack? We don't need you, Jack.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.